We'll talk about entrepreneurship. Are you an entrepreneur or do you imagine yourself ever being an entrepreneur? There are those entrepreneurs who are successful, and then we have the others who are not. Would you want to be a successful one? You are in the right place. This is Now Tell Us. I'm your host, Anthony Muirore. Today we are going to be talking about what successful entrepreneurs do differently. As always, at Now Tell Us, we have guests who come and share with us ideas, they come and educate us, they come and inspire us. And today there's no exception. We have someone who has a great experience on entrepreneurship, and he's going to be here shortly. His name is Parker Harris. And at this point, I'll ask you to join me to go and meet him. But before that, please remember to share this episode with all your friends, whether you're watching it or listening to it, or even when you get to hear it or watch it after we are through the recorded version, that is, please remember to share it with your friends. And now, here we go to meet our guest for today, Parker Harris. Stay tuned. Hi, Parker.
Anthony,
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you for coming to Now Tell Us.
it's my pleasure, Anthony.
Yes, we are honored to have you here. Where are you right now?
I am in Prague.
Prague. Where in the world is that? For
That is in Europe. It's in the Czech Republic or Czechia.
that's the capital of Czech. For those who don't know, or maybe.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And what's happening? What's the hour? What's happening? How's the weather?
It's beautiful out. It's a little bit hot. It's summer in Europe. The sun gets up early and stays out late, which I love both of those things. And I'm traveling with my lovely wife and our dog for the year through three continents.
Three continents. So, where basically is your home? This is not your home. You're traveling. You're on transit.
Yeah, we're looking for home. So I've been home has been San Diego, California, my whole life, and late last year, my wife and I decided to move everything into storage and to travel for an indefinite period of time.
That's interesting. Why would you decide on something like that? Curious.
Yeah, well, I think one is we just got married and we're planning on having kids in the future. So doing this adventure before that happens, and also looking for home. You know, home has always been one place for me, and seeing if there's another place that speaks to me or draws me outside of San Diego.
So, hopping from one continent to the other to find a home.
Yeah, so we started in North America and now we're in Europe and then we're going to go to South America. So those are the three continents we're hitting. And, you know, just like the hero's journey, there's always a return. It'll probably be a return to San Diego, but not sure when that will be.
Any idea of checking in Africa whether you can find a home?
I really want to go to the Seychelles. Morocco speaks to me. We're going to go to Madeira, which is an island off of the coast of Africa. But it's not. It's actually a little bit challenging. We're traveling with our dog as well, and there's a lot of places that it's challenging to go to with an animal.
Ah, I can imagine that. Now, let me campaign for my country. When you decide on going to Africa, please go to Kenya. Go to Kenya.
Are in you're in Athens right now. Do you
I'm in,
live in Athens or do you live in Kenya?
I live in Athens, but I'm from Kenya.
Okay.
Yes. Now, this is interesting and really interesting because there's not many people, and I am. imagining, and the listener or the viewer is imagining not everybody gets the opportunity or the blessing to hop from one continent to the other looking for a home.
Yeah, it's something that I never expected to be
Yeah.
able to do. And I was reflecting on this recently, and what came to me was that idea of, if we're willing to do the things that no one else is willing to do for a 10-year period, we can live a life, that everybody, that people dream of, that is not possible. And I think I'm about 10 years into my business, and um, because of a few different things that happened, I was afforded this opportunity.
It's good. And I desire to be afforded that opportunity to hop from one continent to the other, doing the things I would love to do, some things that many people dream of. Now, what's your business, if I may ask?
I run a mastermind community for entrepreneurs.
Ah, that's good. And what's a mastermind?
A mastermind is when two or more minds come together in the spirit of harmony to accomplish a common goal.
Hmm. Two, more than two or more minds come together in
Most
common
people,
harmony.
yeah. So I think, yeah, it's interesting, as I've gone down this journey, I realized that every entrepreneur or CEO or leader eventually finds themselves in a mastermind group, and usually will remain in a mastermind throughout the rest of their career. For 30, 50 years. So it becomes an important part of the personal development and business development of a business leader at a certain point in their career. But unfortunately, most people are not exposed to them through the education process or through their professional process in their life until there's an acute challenge, right? And sometimes that acute challenge is a business challenge or a personal, or it can also be a personal challenge. If you think of like people that have a drinking problem, or some sort of even a drug problem, right? They end up joining like AA, or Alcoholics Anonymous, or Narcotics Anonymous, or some sort of mastermind that's designed to help them solve that problem. Um, but yeah, I was fortunate to be able to discover this through someone I look up to, which was Benjamin Franklin. Ben
Hmm.
Franklin was one of the founding fathers in America, and he actually started a group called Junto, which my company is called Junto Global. Hundreds of years ago, which he called a club for mutual improvement, and it had a huge impact on his life, on his business, and also on the United States. Some people would say that the conversations in that group helped led to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So it's something that was near and dear to my heart, and I always see like success leaves clues. And I was able to start this group for myself in my early 20s, and now I'm in my mid 30s, and it's been a big gift for me and for hundreds of other people that have experienced it.
Hmm. Junto, when you say, came from Benjamin Franklin, but you're not in any way linked to Benjamin or any associate of Benjamin.
I'm
How?
his great, 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 great. No, I'm just kidding. No, I am not linked. It was he's our inspirational founder, but we have done our own thing, leveraging his wisdom, but also taking it to the next level, in my opinion.
Well, that's good. And it's great that you're sharing this with us because someone who's listening or watching us, I'm sure is going to get something out of it. And when we are talking about a mastermind, is this what you say that successful entrepreneurs do differently? Is this the main thing, or do you have some other things that successful entrepreneurs do differently from us?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I have a few other things that have come to mind. Is this a good time to share those?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the hardest parts, like, if you think of school, like the education system is really designed to, like, with the goal of getting 100%, right? With like, I want to get the A. entrepreneurship is not like that. In that, entrepreneurship is about embracing failure and rejection. And
Mm-hmm.
those are two things that most people don't want to deal with. It's
Mm-hmm.
why salesmen make so much money, because salesmen are actually willing to deal with rejection and failure. It's actually something that they have to deal with the majority of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, more than 50% of the time, a good salesman hears no, right? Like the best salesman in the world will have a 30% success rate, maybe
Mm-hmm.
40, 25, somewhere between, 25 and 40% is the
Mm-hmm.
best in the world. And so that means they're failing more than half the time. In school, that is an F. That is a hard F. And
Yeah.
so I think the willingness to fail and face rejection is something that a successful entrepreneur does that most people are unwilling or uncomfortable to do.
Mm.
Um, Something else that comes to mind is investing in themselves, like investing in their future, investing in skills, investing in improved beliefs. It's almost like an operating system. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're investing in their own operating system to uh, towards becoming more valuable, more skilled, so that they can have a higher impact and to create leverage for them.
Mm.
I think a lot of people are only willing to invest in pleasure, um, and investing in ourself in myself has paid the most returns, and I think that's something that other successful entrepreneurs also do. And I'm talking about, you know hundreds of thousands of dollars over years and years in different experiences and coaches and programs and books and different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think another thing that successful entrepreneurs do is they solve the right problem at the right time. And
Mm-hmm.
in business, there's so many problems to solve. It becomes really challenging to identify what is the right problem to solve. And the way that I think about it is like, what is a question that I would invest $10,000 to answer? What is a question that I would invest $100,000 to answer? And
Mm-hmm.
if we don't know what if a lot of people I'll ask, they're like, there's no question that I would invest $10,000 to answer. And I'm like, well, what if the question was, how do I make $1 million? Would you invest $10,000 into that?
Mm-hmm.
Like learning, it's like absolutely right. That's
If I,
a
if I
huge
have
return.
a higher chance of doing it, then why not? I'll go look for those $10,000 and invest in that.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
If someone can answer for me how to make $1 million, I will find $10,000 to answer. In fact, I did. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I remember when I first made that type of investment, it felt so heavy to me, where I was like dead set to get that return and to
Mm-hmm.
like to learn from that. So, um, I believe that most people don't know what's holding them back. They don't know what their biggest challenge is. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know what that question is, and if we don't know, it's impossible to answer it. Um, and I think there's another level to this. It involves personal development. I think most entrepreneurs have a strong growth mindset. They're looking to learn. They're looking to evolve. Like I'm always looking to learn and evolve, and I find that in tough love. I find that in my enemies sometimes tell me exactly my opportunity to grow. They don't say it in a kind way, but I can still find the wisdom in it. And I think previous there's certain times in my life where I can look back, and all I was doing was trying to numb or escape and hide from that pain versus embrace it and let that pain and discomfort cause me to grow and evolve. And I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody wants to, I think most people want to grow, but they don't understand that growth is painful, that growth is uncomfortable. And so embracing discomfort, embracing that pain as a way of life, and seeing the benefit of evolving versus staying the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the punchline here is like really knowing thyself, building awareness of who we are, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what our biggest challenge is, what our bottleneck is, and what is really holding us back.
Mm-hmm.
Often, once we identify what that is, the answer is much easier to find than the question.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Let's backtrack a bit. Where did it all start? Because now we are seeing a successful packer who is hopping from one continent to the other. Were you born? You said you're a grand. Oh, no, that was a joke. Okay. Now, how did you start? Because maybe you were born in a rich family, in an entrepreneur that was successful. How, how did it all begin?
Yeah, so fortunately or unfortunately, I was not from a rich family. I was from a lower middle class family that both my parents worked really hard. They never graduated from college, and they only had one child as a result of that because they wanted to invest in me. And at a pretty young age, I wanted money, and so I would ask, like I would do my chores, and I would also go to my neighbors, and I would ask what they needed help with, for what they would be willing to pay for. And I was mowing a lot of lawns and washing a lot of cars, and doing these things that they didn't want to do. And I learned to enjoy doing those things, but I also realized that there was a path that was laid out before me that maybe I wanted or I didn't want. And I decided I didn't want to do, certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I had to uh, the way I thought about it was like I wanted to work with my brain instead of my back. And and so that caused me to have to really develop my brain so that I could add value to people. So that's where it started for me. I just at a pretty young age I wanted money. I was working 30 hours a week when I was in high school, making a few $1,000s a month. When everybody else was partying or doing other things, I was working. And when I graduated, I had saved up a good amount of money that then allowed me to invest and make some different decisions.
Isn't that beautiful? At around 30, enjoying your life, living life that many of us would dream of, you give us a perspective that whoever is at his 20s or maybe teens and is thinking of playing video games or going to parties, these ideas, if you would take them and apply them in your own life, at 30s, you would be enjoying all that you're dreaming of. Taking the example of Parker. That's good. That's good. That's great. So I believe even in your growth, in you making a few $1,000s in your college years,
High
you also,
school.
in high school actually, you also faced a few challenges, some failures along the way, as every one of us would. Those 70% failures that entrepreneurs go through, what were they during those early years?
Yeah, so I was an only child, like I mentioned, and I
Mm,
really wanted friends. And in my head, it was like I wanted a best friend.
mhm,
And I found myself I surrounded myself with people that didn't have my best interest in mind, and maybe didn't really care about me, and were living a life that I accepted because I wanted connection, I wanted relationships, but it didn't wasn't really aligned with where I wanted to go.
mhm.
And that led me into a really dark place. I actually almost died in a car accident, um, and that caused me to wake up and really look at things more clearly and make some difficult decisions, which started with walking people out of my life and starting fresh and being really careful on who I let in my life. Um, so that was one big mistake, and I think the second big mistake that's kind of paradoxical in a way, but it was being in such a rush. There's a benefit to being really focused and being urgent about things. But sometimes when I rushed, I missed a lot of opportunities that were right in front of me that would have been millions, tens of millions of dollars in value that I wasn't present for because I was in such a hurry. And then it was unsustainable. So then I would have to go into numbing, hiding, escaping versus just being patient, slowing down, being a little more smooth, and that ended up getting me where I wanted to go faster.
Hmm. As many of us would wish we eventually will succeed, we will achieve our dreams, but if only we learn from our failures, our mistakes. And I know that those mistakes, those challenges that you faced, taught you some great lessons. And I guess some of them are what you're sharing with us here in this episode.
Yeah, I think those, if I look back, some of the things I wish wouldn't have happened, but they ended up becoming the biggest gifts because if I wasn't careful on who I let in my life and I didn't curate that group, that's what became the foundation for what Junto is today. And so often out of the greatest, pain can come the greatest gifts if potentially we accept them and learn from them.
Hmm. Wow, wow, wow. This is so wonderful. This is interesting. At this point, I want to thank each and every person who's watching or listening. Even when you get to listen to this or watch it after we're through, we really appreciate you taking your time and coming this far. Okoth, thank you for the feedback that you're loving this episode. And anybody else who's out there, you can always ask a question, leave us a comment. We really appreciate your feedback. It's what that
Thank
makes us going, keeps us going. And we thank Parker for this wonderful information that he's giving. Now, his business is in masterminds. Now, would like to have a clue of how it is that I mean, because there's someone who's looking for somewhere that he can gain the inspiration on a daily basis, and this is what comes from a mastermind, or maybe weekly, maybe monthly. I don't know how they meet. So, how do your masterminds work, and what kind of person could you be interested in guiding along?
So I think one thing that's different about masterminds than like traditional learning environments or coaching environments or school is that there's no hierarchy in a mastermind. It's a horizontal environment where everybody's a peer. Think of like Knights of the Round Table, right? Where um, even the king, it wasn't at the head of the table, right?
Hmm.
Everyone was in equal there. And I think that's an important aspect of a mastermind. I also think, it's about creating space, like a space to talk about the things that matter most to us.
Hmm.
And I personally think almost everyone on earth would benefit from a mastermind. And I encourage people to start their own mastermind, like start a group for themselves, bring together the people that they most respect and value and have relationships with for a discussion around important things. And that's one thing that we really focus on is setting the tone, like setting the intention for the meeting, that this is a space that is built around being vulnerable, right? This is not a space to try to sell each other things. This is not a space to try to get referrals to grow our business. I mean, business relationships do form, but this is a space to bring our real self to the table, and that can be a challenge for an entrepreneur because they they have a complex stakeholder relationships with people in their lives, whether it's their team, their investors, other executives, even their family. Right? It can be a challenge to bring problems that we're having in our business to people that don't really understand it, or if we told them, they would be afraid. Or like, oh, should I get another job? It's
Hmm.
and so. Um, that's one thing that is important in creating a mastermind is creating a space for people to take their masks off and be who they really are and be seen and have each other's best interests at heart. We really work with entrepreneurs that are doing high six figures, seven figures, even eight figures. So that's kind of our sweet spot. Um, but when I started this mastermind for myself, I was just leaving university. I was making, I was starting my career at a Fortune 100 company, and I was making an entry level salary. And I was attending a lot of different events, conferences, and experiences. But the value that I experienced in that peer to peer environment was more valuable to me than going to some event to hear what worked for someone in the past, because there's so much good content online now. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much good content on YouTube. I mean, iTunes University. There's so much good content online where going to an event to hear someone speak, unless it's perfectly relevant to answering that $10,000 question, that $100,000 question, or you get a talk with that speaker, it might be more valuable to talk to someone that's experiencing the same challenges as you and is working on solving it.
Hmm. When people meet in a mastermind, now the example of the people that you put together in a mastermind, how's the meeting like? Like, you come to a meet, do you have meetings weekly, monthly, and what is it like to be in a meeting, a mastermind?
So we've done those different frequencies. We've done monthly, we've done twice a month, we've done weekly. So the frequency of a mastermind will often change depending on the life stage of the members in it. Once we start having kids, we have a successful business. It can be a challenge to meet very often. Um, and I think the way that I think about this is it's not like an event, right? Where we go to an event and then we leave an event. A mastermind is something we're a part of, even when we're not there. So I think of it as more of like an iteration loop where the magic of a mastermind starts before we even go to the mastermind. It involves some preparation of really understanding what is it that I need to bring to the table? What is actually important that other people could benefit from discussing that would move the needle in our business or in our personal life? Because a lot of times the things that kills a business is not a business problem. It's
Mm,
a personal challenge, a family challenge, a health challenge, a relationship challenge. Those things can kill businesses potentially, like business strategy tactics. Those are solvable problems, but
mhm,
having a limiting belief, not having a blind spot, those are more difficult to solve sometimes. So I think it starts with the preparation. And then the way I think of it, a mastermind is it's a structured, unstructured space for us to talk about the things that will add the most value to our life. So we're not, bullshitting about the weather or sport games or, things that are comfortable to talk about. We're having the uncomfortable conversations, and that's what really moves the needle. And then what a good mastermind, it's not about talking, it's about taking action. So what are we actually going to do with this conversation to move things forward? And then creating accountability and reporting back to each other with what we did, what worked, what didn't work, where are we stuck now, and essentially creating an iteration loop that can become an upward spiral.
mm. That's great. That's great. Now, at this point, let me give you the opportunity to invite someone to your mastermind or masterminds. I guess you don't have only have one group. You, because being a platform, you could be having like thousands. I don't know, 10, 20 thousands masterminds.
Yeah, we've had dozens and dozens of mastermind groups in Junto now.
Okay, so invite someone now. Make the invite.
So, so for us, we're really careful on who we bring into a mastermind. So it's more curating and making sure that they have the level of commitment and that they're coming to solve problems. And the way I think about it is, can they contribute to and receive from the mastermind? Because there needs to be a give and take.
Mm-hmm. So, would someone listening here who could be interested in joining it, how would they, or maybe asking, finding out whether they are good fit for the masterminds, how would he go about it?
Well, there's a lot of different types of masterminds. Um,
Under Junto?
so Junto is a mastermind. There's other masterminds.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if they would want to be a good fit for Junto, I would encourage them to apply for it. People that even if someone's invited into Junto, they need to qualify for that. And
Okay.
and then just because someone makes it into Junto doesn't mean they're going to remain in Junto. If they're not taking it seriously, if they're not taking action, if they're not walking the walk, then there's a point where they might not be invited back to that conversation, that mastermind.
Mm,
So I think the way I think about this is like a lot of problems in life are Googleable, or now Chat GBT, right? We can
yeah.
ask we can ask the internet, how do I do this, and you'll probably find the world expert to do it in video for 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, or 15 minutes in some sort of format that will
Yeah.
help answer that question. I
Mm-hmm.
think a mastermind is relevant to someone when their problems are no longer Googleable.
Mm, that's interesting. Your mastermind, if you can't Google what your issue is, your problem, your challenge, that's when you go for the mastermind.
A lot of times it's like the unknown unknown, right?
Mhm.
Mark Twain had a quote that said, "It's not what you don't know that's going to hurt you, it's what you know that isn't so." And that's the unknown unknown. And so there's usually a point in someone's journey where they're just like, I've tried everything. I
Mhm.
don't know. I can't solve this. And it's like, okay, that's probably a time when a mastermind is relevant because the chances are they haven't tried everything. and and there's something maybe that's staring them in the face that they just can't see. And they need someone else to see it for them and then
Mm,
to communicate it to them in a way that has their best interest in mind. And often the way that our structure works is we're not telling people what to do. We're not giving advice to people. These people are already successful. We are talking about from our own experience. And when people share from their own experience versus me telling someone what to do, like when someone tells me what to do, I'm like, I ignore them. I don't have a very difficult time hearing that. But if
mhm,
someone tells me what worked for them, it helps me to hear the truth in myself, and hearing that truth can be a powerful thing.
mhm. Yeah, sure, it's true. It's like having a mirror that, because I can't see myself. I don't know how I look unless I have another means to reflect my image on me. That's when I'm going to understand how it is that I look. I'm feeling, but is that how I look at it? Yeah, so we are almost coming to the end of this show. And we thank you very much, Parker, for taking your time and being with us here.
Well, it's my pleasure, Anthony. I'm just making a note. You helped me think about something that I hadn't thought about in a while.
Oh, yeah, that's why masterminds are important. We come here and we see it. It's like we are having one right here.
Indeed, two or more minds
Yeah,
coming to
two or more minds
the
gathered
spirit of
together.
harmony for a common goal of adding value to your community.
Yeah. Now, would you want to connect with someone? And if so, how do they do that? How, or maybe people find out more about you or Junto. What would you suggest?
I'd suggest that they connect with me on social media. I'm pretty active on different social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, even Twitter. People are also free to email me. My email address is parker@junto.global. Um, and we also have a website. I think, in terms of how to connect with, you know, I think one of the most challenging things, it goes back to the first thing I said about what a successful entrepreneur does, is being willing to fail and face rejection. But I encourage people to reach out to people that they want to connect with. It doesn't need to be me. You know what I mean? It can be someone else, and just reach out and be willing to be imperfect And again, think about the other person's point of view. Usually, if we want to talk to someone, there's other people that want to talk to him too. They're probably a little busy, and so think about how you can make your ask in a way that is easy for them.
Make an ask that is easier for the person that you're asking. And I remember you telling us, yeah, you go to the neighborhoods and ask them, what's your challenge? What is it that I can do for you? What problem are you facing? And if you can ask the right questions that is in the best interest of the person you're asking, then you're more likely to get a go ahead. You're more likely to get a yes than a no.
It
But
astounds
yeah.
me. It astounds me, Anthony, in this world. There's so many problems that I have that I would need help with, and very few people come up to me and is like, "Hey, Parker, I like what can I help you with?" Right?
Mm,
I think back in the day, that was just how the world worked, and for some reason, I think that might be changing. And people that want to add value to other people, there's always a place for that person.
that's a good one. People who want to add value to other people, there's always room for that person.
Always.
Always.
There's no shortage of people that have a problem, and people that have money have the most problems, right? Like Notorious said, right? More money, more problems. And so people that have money have problems, and there's very few people that actually care about solving that person's problem. Most people only care about solving their own problems, and it becomes very difficult to accrue wealth or to make money if we're only interested in solving our own problems.
Mhm. I want to think that this episode should have gone to an hour or so, but then our time has come to an end. But before we even call it quits, you were recruited by a US president to speak at leadership conferences around the country. When
That's
was that? Who was the president?
it was George Bush Jr.
Okay. How was it?
So I got really involved in a nonprofit organization called Youth in Government when I was younger, and it's where I found my voice. It's where I found my people. So it's a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that forms a model legislature, and people bring bills to the table, and we debate those bills. And there's different levels. There's the local level, there's the state level, there's the national level. And over a 3 year period, I moved from the local level to being a leader at the state level to then becoming a leader at the national level. And it just turned me on. I love talking about ideas. I'm pretty passionate about civic engagement and politics, which is something pretty rare for a teenager. And it's something I was willing to suffer for. And so the organization's name was Freedom's Answer, and it was a nonpartisan organization to get young people involved in civic engagement and government. And yeah, it was something that I wish I would have I wish I would still be doing in some ways. I really enjoyed it.
And you're doing great so far with everything that you're doing, and with you taking your time and coming and sharing with us what you shared with us. That's already great because you've inspired someone out there who's listening or watching, and we thank you.
My pleasure, Anthony.
You've said so many great things in this episode, but as always, at now tell us we ask you to leave us with a few words that we should always remember. Which are those very great words that we should always remember every day?
A quote that changed my life is: life is not a problem to be solved, but an adventure to be lived. At that point in my life, I would looked at everything as a problem to be solved. And when I had that paradigm shift to make life an adventure, it unlocked a whole new world. And I think I'm still living that adventure.
Definitely. For someone who's hopping from one continent to the other, that's an adventure. That's not a problem. That's an adventure. And we wish you all the best in everything that you continue to do. like much more success. We wish that you find a home, a good place for a home, and you continue and you give back to the kids that you plan to have.
I appreciate that, Anthony.
Yes, all the best. And
Likewise.
now, yes, and now we've come to the end of this episode today. It's been a wonderful time with Parker Harris. We really appreciate you. We are signing off.
Bye, Anthony.
Yes,
Bye, everybody.
yeah, this has been Now Tell Us. I've been your host, Anthony Morore. Together with our guest, Parker Harris, we remind you make your life an adventure. Bye for now. Until next time.
Bye,
Bye.
Anthony.
Yeah.